protection? What if somebody tries to mug you?
What?
What if your government tries to throw you in a can?
What?
You're gonna want a shotgun.
Oh. What?
An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo.
Gun?
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Check for the cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, buy a gun, buy a gun, buy a gun, buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension fund. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta drag 'em through the streets.
I guess we're live. This is Tuesday. It is primer time, and we are behind because of Skype difficulties. My name is Michael, and Nicholas will be here sometime soon. And I am not the new Supreme Court justice that was picked earlier tonight, and I have no idea about this guy. Hope everybody's doing well. I don't know if I'm on air, but we're going to. Okay, guess I'm not on air. I guess I am on air. Welcome everybody. Well, let's try and get Nick back on here. It's been an interesting week in the firearms world. The United States Army has finally finished the joint service pistol program and made their decision. And after many years, looks like the Beretta 92, or as the military calls it, the M9, is no longer on the books. And United States Army is moving to a polymer pistol, embracing the new style, and they're using the SIG P320. And that kind of leaves a bunch of options open. We're seeing that price of the Beretta 92 right now at a retail option is somewhere close to $650, between $550 to $700, depending on which model and which finish and place of origin, whether or not it's made in Italy or the United States. With magazines being anywhere from, I'd say you can buy used military magazines for a fairly low price, probably less than $10 a piece sometimes if you buy a couple of them, all the way, to Beretta factory magazines or Metgars being at about $40. SIG is one of the companies that there's not a lot of aftermarket support for with companies, and I'm sure that's about to change with the military contract, because SIG won't have all the they'll probably have the contract for everything for the first 4 years or so, and then something will happen and they'll need to increase production, and they'll contract out to companies like Checkmate or OK or something like that. and you'll start seeing those magazines, which will probably be Parkerized and not have that slick, glossy satin finish on them, like Metgar provides. Um, I think the price that the United States military pays for a Beretta is $274, and it looks like this is actually a cost-saving measure. The SIGs are going to come in. The military price is going to be $207. So that's kind of interesting. In fact, we've never seen any sort of program have a decrease in price. So, maybe there's a decrease in price per unit cost, but maybe there's an increase in the amount that they're going to buy. I don't really see the government doing anything to help us save money at any point. I mean, no matter if there is a lower cost per unit. So that's kind of a great big step. I mean, we're almost mirroring a time of 30 years ago where you've got the venerable and venerated 1911 in 45 ACP, which was the war horse, which was basically the John Wayne pistol. It was the pistol that people thought of when they thought of America. Oh, geez. Just got a message from Nick, and it says that Skype just got erased from his applications or something, so I don't know what the hell he's doing. So I'm going to try and wing this until he can get back on. Let me send him a message here. Wow. So, yeah, technical difficulties. Wonderful, wonderful. So, anyhow, time period a while back when the United States government made the change from the 1911 in 45 ACP to the Beretta 92, and that selection process had its own interesting circumstances with it. But it was a great change in the mindset because the 45 ACP is America's cartridge. That's like what Jesus would shoot. It's the end all be all. We shoot a 45 because they don't make a 46. No caliber for defense should start with anything less than a 4, and that 4 should better have a 5 after it. There's all kinds of things that can be said about the 45, and then the step down to the 9mm to, it was a kind of a multifaceted move, but in the end, it was really to kind of stick in line with supply concerns with NATO at the time of the Cold War. And so the change to 9mm was a natural and a foregone conclusion, just due to the fact that we could trade ammo with, whoever's ass we had to come and save at some point from the evil Russians. That had a lot of concern and a lot of outcry and a lot of people screaming about a pipsqueak caliber like the 9mm. It's only good for angering rats and shooting Frenchmen or something like that. There was always some sort of slam against it. And lots of stories of Berettas failing early on. And it was the 92F that was the original pistol given to the military. And after about a year and a half or so, there had been some serious incidents where slides had flown off of pistols. And due to metallurgy and excessive use and use beyond the stated limits of the parameters of the weapon, and basically what it came down to was the Navy SEALs had been, or I shouldn't single out the Navy SEALs because I can't say exactly if it was the Navy SEALs, but some sort of special operation unit had been using the Beretta M9 and had been using a lot of overpressured rounds suppressed. And that puts a little bit of frame on the weapon, and then maybe there was some suspect metallurgy. And there were some problems with locking blocks cracking and slides flying off and hitting guys in the face and causing all sorts of injuries. So then you had the transition to the 92FS, which was reinforced that locking block, and basically made the frame the frame safer. It didn't give it a safety. It made the frame safer. And that is the Beretta 92. That is, everybody knows today is the M9. It was John McClane in the Die Hard movies. That was his handgun, yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers, and all that. Let's see, it was prominently featured in the title of The Sopranos. It was in their logo. It was in the Godfather movies. Beretta, and it's an older design. The Beretta 92 is a design from the early 70s. And when you really come down to it, the Beretta 92 is also kind of a crossover design, a combination of Walther P38, the 9mm 8-shot pistol designed by the Germans during World War II and then served after World War II for a good long time, and a Browning high power. And I mean, if you're going to pick two different firearms to combine, those are pretty good. It came up with that, and pretty much it was the standard. It's quite a large handgun. It's by no means a small handgun, even though there were a slim model and some compact models. And compact meaning they had a shorter grip or a shorter slide or both. And then there was a single stack model. They could never really get away from their just really, really large size. And I mean, they work fine with somebody who's got, maybe, I'd say, like a more larger to medium to larger size hand. They just don't work for smaller people. And that was one of the issues that the military sought to correct with the new situation with the 320 SIG. And Beretta actually had fielded another version of the M9. They called it the M9A3, and they sought to remedy some of the perceived shortcomings of the previous 92s and M9s. But they were eliminated from competition early with the M9A3, which is just basically a reworked 92 with some additions and nifty stuff. It comes pre-cerakoted from the factory in, desert tan, and it's got a nifty grip with backstrap inserts, and it comes with a pre-threaded barrel for a silencer or whatever, and then it's got a rail under it, and it's just they put some bells and whistles on the same thing and tried to pass it off, and it didn't work. And there was quite a few months of consternation and decision, and there was a bunch of pistols in competition for this, and truly, I'm kind of actually shocked that they went with the SIG 320 rather than something like the Glock, which is, well, to me, is the gold standard. Not just me, but to many is the gold standard in polymer striker fired pistols. And wow, yeah. So that's a pretty big event. Another thing that happened this week is Olympic Arms. One of the older manufacturers of AR-15s and one of the first manufacturers to come into prominence with making their own lowers and selling them and selling their own branded AR-15, and one of the first manufacturers to embrace polymer lowers for AR-15 shuts its doors at the end of February. They've been making guns for about 40 years, and it's kind of interesting in this time of we're not really facing a whole lot of gun control cries at this time. I mean, there's always the gun control cry, and they're trying to I guess we can recap some current events here. There was a shooting at a mosque in Quebec, in Canada over the weekend or 2 nights ago, and once again, the situation is kind of fluid from what the news report said. It originally came out with 3 shooters and cries of Allahu Akbar, and now shooter is a white nationalist Canadian who happens to love Trump. Anyhow, uh, that has, once again responded and resulted in cries for gun control in the United States, because somebody doing something wrong in Canada is now America's fault once again. This is the same argument they used with the Fast and Furious and some of the other gun walking scandals, I don't know. I think maybe with Trump in play, they're kind of grasping at straws, and I do not view Trump as a savior, but I will say, and he's the first president I've ever heard of actually saying that jobs are coming back and people are agreeing with him, and it's from companies that I've heard of and have used their products before. Okay, I don't know. I thought we had Nick back on the call, and I think I lost it, and I don't know what happened here. Uh, Anyways, I don't know where we were at. I have no idea what we were talking about just 30 seconds ago. Really was expecting Nick to be here. He had some interesting news. He had a chance to go to a gun show for the first time in a while, and in his area. I don't know, guys. I'm sorry about the delays and the problems here with this audio. Uh, Thought I just had Nick in, and let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get him in on this thing myself here. Um, wow, this is great. I'm sorry, folks. I don't mean to be playing. Well, that didn't work either. So you guys are getting tech radio and gun radio at the same time, and neither of them are good right now. Uh, Nick keeps on trying to get in. I'm trying to get him back on. Uh, I don't know. He's trying to message me here. Let me see here. I don't know if I can. Let me try and add the Ute to the call somehow. Let me see if I have that option. Add. Let me see. No, I don't get that there. Boy. Let's see if I got him there. Hopefully that's adding him. Says he's added to the call. I don't know if I am on air.
I'm finally back.
Are you there? Let's see. Let's look in the hello chat people. Are we here?
It'll take the 3-second delay.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here, dude, because that was like rough, like treading water for 20 minutes there.
Well, once you do it one time, you'll be able to do it all the time. So, yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Don't
interesting. We were talking just before I went to connect. I literally hit the add UCY, and Skype just said, "Fuck you."
Yeah, that I don't like that. I don't like when that messes with us.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Hey, we are good.
Looks like we're back. Looks like we're
That's
back.
awesome. Okay, well then, let's give this a truncated. Welcome to the show, everybody. You heard the pre-game bullshit with Michael. Welcome, Nick.
Well, thank you very much. This is the first primer time we've had since the inauguration, I believe.
Right. Tonight is the selection of the new Supreme Court Justice candidate, and I don't know a damn thing about the guy.
Yeah, apparently he is coming out of the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. I just got the notifications on my phone a few minutes ago. Neil Gorsuch has been nominated by Trump, and apparently he was one of the 21 names that was submitted during the campaigns. So there's been ample time to vet such a person, and not only that, I just received the AP news alert and the CNN news alert that Nancy Pelosi has reared her ugly head and has said that this nomination is outside of the mainstream.
What the fuck does that mean?
Seriously,
what the fuck does that mean?
That means he's not, either Hebrew or a Democrat. That's outside the mainstream.
What's his last name? How do you spell that?
Gorsuch.
Gorsuch. Jeez, that sounds like it's almost like Czech or something.
Yeah, it could be. You never know. It may be a bastardized name of an ethnic name.
It could be. It kind of has like almost like a Hungarian ring to it or something.
Yeah, it depends on how they spell it.
European. Therefore, he is suspect. All Eastern Europeans are suspect.
Yeah. I can tell you, it is not a good German name. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. So, listen, something I was trying to talk about here, and I really wish I had your input in on it. I was just kind of rambling. Was something I think that's pretty big is the kind of like an end of an era and beginning of a new one is the United States military, the Army going with the SIG 320.
Yeah, I believe it will be called the M17, and this will be the modular handgun system. I have zero experience with it. Haven't picked it up. Haven't seen it in person. But I'll tell you this much: it'll end up being you're going to get every bit of the $207 that the Army pays for each individual one of those.
That's right, and I think that's something that we need.
If by contrast, the Jimenez Arms JA9 is $199 at the gun show I went to. So what does that tell you?
It makes me wonder what would the government pay for a Jimenez Arms JA9?
Ooh, they might get that on a Ganga.
Because I mean, like if a Beretta costs like $270 to the government, and they retail like from $550 to $700 new. That's more than half off the retail price. What would a JA9 sell for? Like $4 to the government or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, they may give the government royalties on future purchases.
I think that the government would end up seizing them things and melting them down to make pennies.
Yeah. So I mean, gosh, they were never going to go with an HK pistol. That just wouldn't happen.
Well, and
even though our special operations guys go with Glock and they go with HK.
I think HK is actually too much for what it is, because not everybody in the military is a special operator or anything. And quite honestly, we've discussed this before. A pistol stays in the holster 99.5% of the time.
It is the weapon of last resort.
Truly, it is. It's the weapon you just you kind of use to get back to your other weapon. And
that's exactly it.
The SIG 320 is a descendant of the SIG 290, which is what they're calling a modular pistol, and basically it's kind of a new design. Um, it's an interesting concept. The traditional frame, which is the numbered part and thus the firearm, is now moved to like a trigger pack, and that's what's considered the firearm. And that trigger pack can be swapped out into different size frames for different color frames, different frames with different accoutrements on it, grip profiles or whatever. And I think it's kind of gimmicky. I don't see the wisdom behind that. And I mean, like worldwide, there's already the institution available for Glock. And I mean, I'm not necessarily a Glock fanboy, but I think Glock is a fine pistol. It works well. It's got a great design and it's got an excellent track record. I mean, it is the gold standard. And there's enough aftermarket stuff for Glock out there, and enough people who are Glock professionals. And I mean, outside of Glock factory training, these are people who like disassemble Glocks and become intimately familiar on them on their own, and come up with design innovations for them, whether or not I like them or I think they're aesthetically pleasing or even remotely useful. There's just a plethora of them, and yes, I do know what a plethora is. And
yes, Happy.
yes, I have a sweat there. I find the choice to go with that versus something like, well, I mean, seriously, Glock was the cop standard. Glock is it's functional. It may not be the prettiest gun, but it's functional, and there are magazines for it everywhere. And I don't know. I kind of almost got to question the wisdom of that, because I mean, it seems like we're saving money, but in the end, I bet you they don't stick with it. I bet you they don't stick with it for 30 years like they stuck with the Beretta.
Oh no, and there weren't any basing rights at stake either.
That's right, and that's something I did not mention. I had kind of mentioned that there were some underlying and other causes to the choice of the Beretta, because if we do go back and look at the what was it, 1979 Joint Pistol Service, something JSPP, I think is what it was called, and there were several designs in that, and the Beretta actually beat the SIG 226, which was later on adopted as the M11. But the Beretta beat that SIG in that competition in, what was it, 1979, and then I think they had another one in 1983. And the SIG won both of those, but they didn't have land in Italy that we could put an air base on.
And store nuclear weapons.
And store nuclear weapons, because the commies are right there, and
Yeah.
That's
Well,
how it works.
speaking of commies, I don't know if you covered it, but the commie leftovers from the last regime have figured out that they got to play The Apprentice, the federal edition, and the acting attorney general was fired last night.
I did see that. That was pretty interesting. There's been some stink about that on the news, but you know what? The stink about it on the news doesn't matter because it's done. She's fired.
It's not only that. This is probably the fastest firing of a government employee for malfeasance that has ever occurred, because obviously her job as the attorney general is to do as commanded by the administration which employs her. She was a leftover from the Obama administration because Jeff Sessions' nomination is being held up. And she jumped on a grenade that really she was going to end up, doing anyways. And this was an opportunity to make a sense of purpose for Chuck Schumer to cry about. And everything is mean spirited. Everything is done very irresponsibly. I mean, to hear it, you would think that the feeble-minded Democrats that we have in our systems of government right now, the only thing that they can rely on is emotion, because Chuck Schumer, this made him cry about having some people temporarily stranded at airports. that made him cry. Oh my goodness. It's not
Yeah.
like, it's not like Donald Trump failed to mention Israel in his Holocaust, remembrance thing,
Yeah, we,
that,
we got to remember this day that we're not allowed to discuss. Come
yeah,
on, everybody bow your heads appropriately. What's the difference between a cow and a Holocaust? You can't milk a cow for 70 plus fucking years.
yeah, yeah. So, the interesting thing is here is that I don't think that for 1 minute Donald Trump wanted to waste the first "you're fired" on an acting, department head. I don't think that was intent, but I will tell you this: it's well within any president's prerogative to fire a an appointee who doesn't do what they're told to do and doesn't execute the orders of the president. And yeah, she went. I think Shelley Payne is her name. Uh, doesn't matter. She's going to go work for for some Democratic think tank in Washington D.C.
Or
And
Goldman Sachs. Or Goldman
yeah,
Sachs. One of the two.
either way.
Well, I did see that. I did see that some, or I heard it earlier on the lovely and wonderful CNN, and with America's favorite anchor and former AIPAC spokesman, Mr. Wolf Blitzer, a true American. Um, he was talking about how 900 foreign service agents had written a letter to the New York Times decrying Trump. And you know what? Fire them sons of bitches too.
Well, see, there is
Well,
precedent for that,
lifetime
Michael.
foreign
That you
service-
bring that up. There is
lifetime
precedent.
foreign service
There is.
agents- But listen to
There's
me, lifetime foreign service agents. That means people who are like well accustomed to sucking off the government teat in a foreign land.
Well, yeah, and so like you said, fire them all, right? There is precedence for it. There was a air traffic control agent strike in the 80s, and Ronald Reagan let them all go and hired a brand new batch. It's not like they can't be replaced.
Right. These people, I mean, if anything, they should be fired because they are the reason why things are fucked up. I mean,
Yeah, certainly.
really, you've been a foreign service agent for 30 years. Well, guess what? Shit's been falling apart for 30 years. That's a
Yeah,
funny
yeah.
coincidence.
So it's no skin off my back. Then again, I don't have a dog in the fight in terms of being a government employee outside of being in the military. I don't have a dog in the fight, saying, hey, I had a job waiting for me in a 3-letter agency. That's not the case. But the thing that I find most entertaining is the folks that are in academia that are signing petitions to disavow the Trump government. I can tell you in my local community, the mayor went on the local news channels today and hosted a news conference in which he stated that our town would be the center of the Trump resistance movement. The way I look at it is, congratulations, you just got your hands, out of whatever federal funds are going to come the second you start harboring illegal immigrants and or obstructing the rule of law in this community. And that's something that I think is important because, cities and counties for too long have flaunted, established law and procedure that we have in this country that have been duly passed and ordained, and yet there's no consequence for them to do it. Personally, one of the reasons why I don't follow the Catholic Church anymore is because every single one of these churches in a economically depressed area feels that it's their right to be a sanctuary for people who don't have the right to be here. And absolutely not, I don't agree with that. And furthermore, who cares what the man in the white suit in Rome says, because he doesn't fucking live here.
Not only that, but the man in the white suit in Rome and the funny hat, he wears $5,000 shoes.
Oh, you're just calling him an elitist.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that they don't play on the same playing field as the rest of us. And I don't know,
He's
like
got God on
you
his
get
side.
into this sanctuary city thing, and something interesting I find was the mayor of Miami, and God, if I can remember his name right now, but recently came
Don
out.
Johnson.
Say it again.
He said Don Johnson.
No, it's not Don Johnson. It might be Rico Tubbs though.
Yeah, there you go.
But the mayor of Miami said that in light of Trump's proclamations and everything, that Miami is going to ditch its sanctuary
Yes.
status and comply with federal regulations. Which, I'm going to say that I find that very interesting timing in the wake of Obama repealing the wet foot, dry foot thing for Cubans. And now the Cuban mayor of America's largest Cuban city is saying, well, fuck it, we're going to follow the rules now that they don't exempt us. So, yeah, I thought that was just kind of odd.
So
but hey,
it's interesting. So I mean, the way I look at it is this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. I said it to you in a message the other day. As soon as they fired Sally Yates, for the longest time they called people who didn't agree with the Obama government. They called us teabaggers. Well, guess what, folks? Now you get the sack.
Right. And I'm telling you, but you know what? In the end, we're all going to get balls on our chin. I truly feel that. I can still smell the bankruptcy, the galaxy's biggest bankruptcies cooking up right now.
But it's going to be better than the last bankruptcy.
Dude, it's going to be so magnificent.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be the best bankruptcy ever. You'll be so sick of being bankrupt by the time it's over and done with. Yeah. So
let's talk about some guns.
So you had the opportunity to go to a gun show in your local area.
I did. As a matter of fact, it's a C&E gun show, and they host gun shows all up and down the East Coast and the interior of the East. And it was in a small town. It was just a small county convention center, which literally was nothing more than probably like an internal arena for a 4-H organization. Wasn't very big, but
did they charge parking?
No charge for parking. And as a matter of fact, because I have a couple of friends in the industry, as it were, I was able to secure a vendor badge and did not have to pay for anything. So give it up for no
good job
in
on
places.
using your merchant skills. Good job there. All right. So how much would it have been to enter this if you had not scammed the man?
So they did offer a $1 off coupon, and I believe that your entrance was $7.50, and it did give you entrance both Saturday and Sunday. So, realistically,
so $7.50 was good for 2 days.
Yeah. So I mean, not a bad deal.
That's cool. Here it's usually $5. I've not been to a show in a long time that's been more than $5 to get in. But it's $5 for each day. Now that does give you a stamp on your hand where you can go in and out of the place, Yeah. But
so definitely a worthwhile event. I went for the afternoon portion. The guy I was linking up with had a late start, and we didn't. We went to lunch first, and then I followed him out there, and we got in. I can tell you that. Prices were all over the map, mostly on the high to very high side for what was being offered. One of the things that I saw that's probably not a new phenomenon, but just shocking to me, aside from the people who have absolutely no trigger or muscle discipline, that blew my mind. But the individuals who were walking around with 2 AKs or 2 M4s strapped to their chest, with signs on their backs, saying, hey, 750 OBO. And I think it was or body odor.
That's because deals like that sort of stink. Now those guys are selling them as private sellers. Does your state have a private sales have to go through an FFL or have a background check on them?
So individual personal sales do not. However, the Virginia State Police did have an officer there who was willing to conduct voluntary background checks at the seller's discretion. I did observe people keeping their ledgers, for transfer of firearms. So, people were doing the paperwork. The requirements were that you had 2 Virginia, forms of ID, unless, of course, you're military. But like I said, you can't come to Virginia with a New York license and purchase a firearm. That's just not going to happen. So sorry, Chuck Schumer. Sorry, Michael Bloomberg. Your story doesn't fucking check out.
Right. Well, now to be honest, you can't buy a handgun. You can buy a long gun in another state, but you can't buy a handgun. But long guns are not the issue. Long guns are a minute fraction of the violence, or a tool used in the violence in the nation. You find far more people injured with hands and hammers than you do with long guns. More people are assaulted with rocks than they are with long guns. And long gun meaning a shotgun or the dreaded assault rifle, which if you really want to get into that category, the numbers drop even further. It's a great big scare tactic, and it avoids pretty much the whole meat and potatoes of the question, as we've seen pop up in Chicago again. I mean, we're less than a month into the year. We're at a month right now, and I think they're already at something like 340 shootings in Chicago right now for the year. And I mean, they're on a pace to triple what they did last year. And last year was a record-breaking year. So there's other problems, and it's not the firearms.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, like I said, there's quite a few people that are out there trying to skirt the system, but you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna see that by and large people are following the rules, at least where I'm at.
So let me ask you here. All right, so this show, how many tables were at this show?
I would say that there was probably a good 50 vendors who were dealing with firearms, probably another 20 vendors who were dealing with accessories, and probably 10 vendors who were exclusively dealing in ammunition. So you're looking at almost 80 vendors.
So you didn't have anybody that was selling Tupperware or ladies jewelry?
No. There was no swap meet stuff there. No swap meet Louis.
That's awesome. Usually when the shows in my area, they're a little bit bigger, but we have probably, I'd say, about 10 to 15% of the tables would be shit like MacBook covers and LED flashlights. I'm not even including the guy with the tasers, but like drones and things that aren't actually firearms nor firearms accessories. What would you say the ratio of private sellers with tables, somebody clearing out their collection versus people with an FFL?
Yeah, so when you walked in, there was 2 lanes to go. You could either go to the right or you could go to the left. You could go straight down the center too, but that was kind of like where the accessories were. If you walk to the right was used firearms, and then if you walk to the left was kind of like new sales. Walking to the right, there were quite a few collections that you could tell these are individual sellers who travel from show to show, and that they were very very quick to point out that which show they were going to be at next. Aside from the assorted sundry guys who were selling knives along with their firearms, most of the used firearms that I would see was in this area. Shotguns were very prevalent, wheel guns were very prevalent, and maybe a couple odd bolt actions. A lot of advertisements for pre-64 Winchesters.
When you say revolvers, was it good quality revolvers, or was it more of the workhorses? And I know you did send me a picture of a pile of Colts. Yeah. And that's a $50,000 picture right there. Easy.
Yeah, and that was one seller's table. So when it comes down to it, you're taking a look at all the Colts, all the Smith and Wessons. Probably in about 3 tables there was easily 75 pistols that were right there, and going for premium prices. These guys are not in the business to lose money, and as a matter of fact, the gentleman who I was there under his invite, he had a few items on his table, and had the one each redneck and one each bumpkin show up asking him what he could get for Granddaddy's shotgun, and he had to tell him, hey, thank you very much for for letting me take a look at your weapon, but I'm really only interested in items that are about 98%, wear and condition or better. And so, that kind of leaves people kind of standing there dumbfounded because they believe that they're going to get top dollar for something that they've never even cleaned.
Right, and I've seen that at shows too, where people, well, this is a 380 and it's made out of space age plastic. Yeah, but it's an inner ordnance Hellcat, which is like a shitty copy of a Keltec, and it doesn't work all that good.
Yeah,
It's not worth $600.
and that's the funny thing. I could have probably brought one of my shotguns that I may at some point consider as trade bait, just because it's that semi-automatic 20 gauge. A lot of people have. I mean, I saw more auto fives in this one gun show than I've seen in any other one location in quite a while.
And what are the prices going for auto fives? Because in my area, you can't touch you can't touch a beat up one for less than $800, and you find one that's in decent shape.
These were no less. I mean, the lowest priced one I saw was $1,100. Average price was $1,200 for an A5.
Yeah, that sounds about pretty much the way it is here as well. I really would like an auto five. If chances are, if I ever get into that way, I'm either going to get a Remington or like a Remington Model 11, or probably one of them Chinese or Turkish knockoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is at this point, I'm interested in seeing what I can get that's a combo shotgun. Whether or not I can get a field barrel for it and a maybe a turkey barrel. Whether it's something that I can go from feathers to fur, and something that happens to have a cantilever scope that goes on one of the barrels. That's going to get my attention. So, maybe an 1187, maybe an 870. Maybe another Mossberg 500. I don't know. But like I said, when you take a look at going to a pump from a semi-auto, there's been tests done that show most people can actually maintain, an aim on a target with a pump better than they can with a semi-auto. So, heck, I might go backwards.
I personally prefer a pump, but I in a shotgun, I like them things to be ultra reliable, and I don't like cleaning gas operated shotguns, man. They're a pain in the ass to clean. They really are. And a pump is so much easier for me to clean. And, a pump is far more reliable. So, I mean, I'm kind of like partial to pump shotguns, unless it's going to be something like a Saiga, an AK derived piston driven shotgun like that. Which in the end, those are ultra reliable, but they have their own shortcomings in their reliability. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Shotguns are a picky thing. All right, so let me ask you: were there the acres and acres of black polymer there?
Yes and no. Like I said, handguns wise, I saw very, very few Glocks. When it came to actual, like AR platforms, there was a lot of ARs, but everything was $700-800, and you're talking about things that are being advertised as a premium build, but they're being built off of Anderson manufacturing components.
And when you say that, you mean the AR-15s?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, I think AR-15s. I don't know if you saw this and if it runs the same, and I'm almost positive it does, but in my area, a new AR-15 is definitely cheaper than a used AR-15. A used AR-15, that guy wants the $30 he spent on the forward grip, and the $40 he spent on that crappy Chinese rail, and the $30 he spent on this part, and the $110 for that Chinese scope. He wants it all. He wants it all back, and he probably wants 10 cents on every bullet he fired through it too. So I think when it comes to an AR, it's almost cheap. The best way is almost to build it yourself. there's so many parts, and I mean now it's truly a Lego rifle, but yeah, I think you kind of pay through the nose for a used one, and the adage of no paper has its own price is, yeah, that's still very much true, no matter who the president is.
Right, right. And that's one of the things that here, as we have a truncated show tonight. One of the things that we're going to see is that as these federal nominations start to roll in and go to votes, what is it going to do when all that the one side has to do is say that everything being passed and being suggested or even brought up is mean spirited and un-American. You know what, folks? I'm going to quote Michelle Obama for you. Now you're feeling like what not having hope feels like, and I hope you guys feel like it for the next 8 years.
Well, I honestly, I feel bad for these people who are really up in arms over Trump and screaming and yelling like it's like he's a goddamn meteor coming into the atmosphere, getting ready to like smack New York or something. I think that's just plain fucking silly.
Right.
Honestly, I'd like to know like what the vote numbers are between the people who actually voted and the people who get out there and march. And I mean, don't even get me started on like Black Bloc and Antifa, with the red and black flag people.
Right.
The anarchist movement. That's just a bunch of bullshit. That's people who, we ain't played Cowboys and Communists yet, but I got a feeling that game's coming up soon. And honestly, people on that leftist side, well, they act like they're intellectuals. They're, if you look at
that's the elitist lure of this, political ideology. Better than you. They know better than you.
Absolutely. They've got the education that you don't have. They've spent more time on the internet watching documentaries on that. Well, while they were learning about, economic and economic repression of womanhood by the patriarchy, you and I have been out playing with rifles and shotguns and handguns. We know how to shoot. They don't know how to shoot. And, I mean, straight up honest, you come down my block and you like start marching and try to set my car on fire, I'm gonna put a bullet in your ass. And Your
right.
Honor, I had to empty 4 magazines. I was in fear of my life. They committed a violent act in front of me, and I was afraid of the mob mentality, and I'd do it again.
Right. And like I said, there's nothing but angst among the masses. The media right now is in free fall mode because everything that Trump does is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. And just by the sheer fact that he's still in office, 10 days, 11 days later, they are beside themselves. They don't know how to handle this. Yeah, wait till the real changes start coming. Executive orders sending people, home because they've been in government offices for too long. Wait till those happen.
You know what? If he does something like that where he mandates, retirement after 10 years of government service, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. So a lot of these sons of bitches have been around too long. And we'll start with that woman that works at DMV who's been there for 30 years, who gives everybody the stank eye when they come in. Get rid of her. Get rid of her. She don't need to be there anymore.
Well, and that's on a local level, but I'm talking the government employee who's gotten a paycheck from Uncle Sam for the last 40 years. Hey, time to move up or move out, buddy.
Right. And I find it funny that there's this never-ending cry about welfare and people on the government tit and all that. And half the time you hear that cry, it comes from government employees. And
right.
I don't know if they've mistaken this outrage for patriotism or something, but I mean, when it comes down to it, what does somebody on welfare get? Like a family on welfare, they get what, like maybe $1,000 a month? I mean, for fuck's sake, how much does a gallon of JP8 cost in Afghanistan? What we figured out with $440 a gallon.
Well, the thing that gets me the most in the last 48 hours is the amount of feigned outrage over the fact that we have Iraqi interpreters who can't get into this country because of Trump's executive order. Well, guess what, folks? We haven't had Iraqi or Afghan interpreters getting into this country for the last 8 years because the Obama administration didn't think it was a priority. So you can't take me with a bleeding heart story and tell me that this is un-American because we're not letting Abdul Habibi get into the country with his 7-month pregnant wife. No, he couldn't get into the country, 7 months ago. It doesn't matter. And the point of the matter is that if you're taken in by that, well, you're just a sucker.
And Nick, that's what everybody who actually believes what mainstream media says is a sucker. I mean, they truly are. It's fake fucking news. And I'll tell you, just for the pure fact that Trump makes these people wet their collective panties, he's doing something right. I mean, I don't really care. I mean, I know the guy's a scammer. I mean, you don't get to have $20 billion without, pulling some kind of dirty shenanigans. But he's making them piss themselves. And that's fucking wonderful. Good for him. I hope he continues doing it, But
Right.
we got to hit the 4 rules, dude.
Please do.
All right. First rule. Every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically inspect and ensure that it is not loaded. Thank God for zip ties on firearms at gun shows, eh?
Oh, my goodness. I
Right.
literally was trying to keep my head from exploding.
All right. So rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Do not cover anybody at the gun show you do not wish to destroy. Rule
Jethro
number 3.
almost got a knife hand to the throat.
Yeah, do not judo chop a dude at table 17.
Yeah.
Rule number 3, know what the target is and know it's beyond the target at all times. And rule number 4, which was rampantly violated like a high school cheerleader in Detroit on prom night, keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon.
Yeah. I tell you what, just... I haven't seen somebody finger a pistol like this since the last time I watched, Tombstone, and especially the scene with Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday going at each other. Just,
Right.
One guy nervously pulling the trigger on his revolver, and I was just, literally everything inside me was saying, don't choke this guy out.
Yeah. You'll get past that because this is the first gun show you've been to in a long time, right?
Oh yeah, certainly. And the problem is that I understand everything is zip tied, everything is rendered safe. However, train as you fright, and practice makes perfect. Because holy Jesus, I saw too many bubbas swinging daddy's and granddaddy's shotguns, where they nearly knocked the head of a woman who was carrying a baby, because he's just holding it over his shoulder, almost perpendicular to his body and parallel to the ground.
He was carrying a 2x4.
Yeah, like Hacksaw Jim Duggan just showed up at the gun show. And speaking of Hacksaw Jim Duggan, we have to pay our respects to Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Former WWE, WWF great, possible murderer, but
yeah, but he was a murderer who could jump off the top rope, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's plenty of people that can do that. So, we as those of us who watch him, rest in peace.
Well, Nick, it was wonderful. Everybody, sorry for technical difficulties. I'm glad you were here, Nick. Everybody stick around. Plenty of great radio. UCY.TV. Happy birthday, Jules. Enjoy your trip. Y'all come back. We'll do this again next week. Take it easy.